Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well, and today we're doing a box office preview, a long-range preview with some updated numbers, including some from this upcoming weekend, which sees the re-release of Avatar, and let's just say things are trending downward for this re-release, which makes me quite happy, as I hated the original release of the film, and I am dreading the release of the sequel. We also have some updates on Don't Worry Darling, which apparently is actually trending upward. So even though I have seen some reports and some accounts that the film is expected to be a financial disaster, what I'm seeing from the box office as far as the projections are concerned is that it is trending upward, which is ultimately a good sign for them. Now, whether or not it's going to be enough for them to make up its budget is an entirely different question altogether. We also have some updates about The Woman King because, yes, apparently The Woman King star Viola Davis says here we have to take license to entertain people, including glossing over some pretty important facts about the characters that they are portraying in the film The Woman King, which, again, glosses over the fact that this tribe not only enslaved countless numbers of fellow tribes around them when they conquered them, but also sold those slaves to white slave traders. But we can't talk about that dirty little piece of history here, can we? Apparently it's mentioned in the movie, but I've heard that it is basically glossed over and really ignored for the much bigger story, which is, hey, we've got strong female warriors here, female warriors of color that we have to talk about, that we have to promote, even though they committed atrocities. We can't talk about those. It's interesting how, when it comes to American history, the same standard doesn't seem to hold true. But when it comes to specific types of history that seem to perpetuate certain narratives, we can make exceptions for this. How about instead, in all cases, in all scenarios, we just talk about the history and the facts all together, the good and the bad. That's at least my own take on this. But before we get any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, loud that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and also make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with the bell notification done. That way you know every time a video or live stream goes live on the channel. Always trip up on that. Also, smash the rumble button if you're watching over there. As you can see, this upcoming weekend is going to see the re-release of Avatar, which is projected to make somewhere between 6 and 12 million in its re-release, which is down 40% from what it was originally estimated to do. My hope is that this is a sign that when they originally were making these estimates, they had assumed a certain love or a certain desire to see this film again, especially in preparations for the sequel coming out, and that hopefully it is a sign that there is not a lot of interest surrounding this film or a lot of interest surrounding this property. Now, I know there is interest surrounding this property. I know there are people that do enjoy the first Avatar movie. I know that there are some that are even excited for Avatar 2. I don't think, though, it's going to be in the same numbers as the first one was. The first one really was a spectacle. A lot of people talked about it, and so it led to a lot of people saying, hey, everyone's talking about this new movie and all this new technological development that James Cameron's been working on. I want to go check it out. But I think that after people did check it out over time, especially when people look back on it, especially since it's now played on television on various networks because of just movies doing that in general, people think, oh yeah, you know what? It doesn't really hold up story-wise. It doesn't really hold up even in the visual effects department. They may have been revolutionary for the time, but it also reined in the dawn of an era of 3D at the theaters that was just downright annoying. So my hope is that whatever the reason might be, people are losing interest in this property, because I know that James Cameron is filming a lot of these films at the same time, but I would really love for them to just flop, for him just to give up on Pandora and to actually make new movies and to actually maybe even revamp the older ones that have yet to get really good, solid 4K releases on physical media, right? That's where he should be right now in his career, not off in Pandora land working for the evil corporation that we call Disney, working on Avatar sequels. That's just my own thoughts. We also have updated numbers, as I said, for Don't Worry Darling, which is projected to make somewhere between $18 and $27 million. And so it's looking like Don't Worry Darling, a female-led film, by the way. Again, that's going to be the narrative of the weekend, as we saw last weekend with the narrative that was being pushed for The Woman King, that this film is expected to be not only number one, but also to have a much larger opening than even that of The Woman King. So there is that. But yes, this is trending upwards, 48% up towards its from its last projection. So we're looking at this film trending upwards, with the overall total domestic being somewhere between $45 and $67.5 million. If we go ahead and do a quick search on this movie, let's go ahead and see if they have finally updated this with a budget. Right now, the budget is projected to have cost $20 to $35 million. And so I'm going to say, yeah, actually, that is not a terrible number. If this film is able to do somewhat similar numbers overseas, which I have doubts about, but hey, you never know, then this film could potentially make some of its money back. This film costs a lot less than the $50 million film known as The Woman King. The $50 million film needs to make $125 million to break even worldwide. You can see that this film will need to make probably closer to $100 million worldwide to break even, meaning that, hey, it is definitely within reach for this movie to be able to do so. Whether it does or not will be up, of course, to the people going to see movies, as people are a lot more selective, it seems, these days for the kinds of movies that they go to see. It's not that people are done watching movies, it's that people are more careful with their money, as is evidenced by massive films like Top Gun Maverick, which can make almost $1.5 billion, and then other films like this, which maybe in other years would have done $100 million easily worldwide, but are now struggling to even get to that point because of people being a little bit more selective. We also have some updated numbers here, including Halloween Ends. We now have some first initial numbers here. This film, which finally is the end of this franchise. Again, I think that the original Halloween films are great. I think that they've made way too many remakes, way too many reboots. They've continued the story, right? So many restarts. And the last film was just downright atrocious. I'm really hoping that this finally is the actual end of the overall story. But it's projected to make $35 to $45 million in its opening. And because these films don't really cost a whole lot of money, that means that this movie is right now looking to actually make its money back, if not its opening weekend, then very early on. Yeah, the budget right now is projected to be $20 million. So yeah, right now, opening weekend is looking to get, again, well on its way to its own break-even point. And that's always a very good place to end up being. Now let's talk about The Woman King, because The Woman King, of course, is the big news at the box office, as it made around $19.5 or so million this past weekend. Some people have said under that video, oh, that's not that good, that's a flop, etc. It still remains to be seen. We have to wait and see exactly what this film does in its second weekend, because there are right now campaigns going in two directions. There's one campaign trying to call this movie out for the historical inaccuracies, and not just historical inaccuracies, right? Someone in the comment section last video tried to argue that, well, all films do this to some extent. Yeah, but when you have something this glaringly omitted or glaringly glossed over, and it's something that other films and other people would get crucified for if they were to gloss over it. For instance, if you had a film about American history and then glossed over the fact that, hey, in American history there were slaves, that's basically the same thing here, because that's exactly what they are doing. They're glossing over the fact that these tribes, rather this specific tribe, not only in its expansion of itself, right, trying to take over other lands around it, building its own kingdom, right, through expansion, actually not only defeated other tribes, but also enslaved those other tribes and sold those slaves to the European white slave trade. Yeah, glossing over that and not having that be a big part of the story is kind of a big deal, because that's where they got their wealth. The way that they were able to... I know, River, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy that they are doing this, and that some people are going to try to let them actually get away with it. I know. River, I know. Sorry about that. That is just how upset they are. Again, if even River and Willow couldn't understand this, I don't know why other human beings can't understand this. But, as you can see right here, even Viola Davis has said, hey, we can defend the revisionist history here because, hey, we have to take license, we have to entertain people. Are you not entertained? But at what cost? Really, at what cost? In fact, over on Bounding Into Comics, our good friends over there, they actually watched the movie and reviewed it. And as it says right here, set in West African Kingdom of Dahomey during the 1820s, the Woman King follows an all-female group of warriors called the Agoji, who protect the kingdom under the command of King Gedzo by John Boyega. That's a misspelling there. Though he is a king in name only. At the head of the Agoji is General Nansika, Viola Davis, who trains the group's members to fight against slave traders. European slave traders to be specific. Let's pause here. This attempt by Price, Bythewood, and Stevens to turn the Agoji and Dahomey into anti-colonial heroes who fought against enslavement and oppression by white people is the film's biggest problem. In reality, the Dahomey were one of the most prominent slave trading states of their time. Again, that's a pretty major thing to kind of gloss over. According to History vs. Hollywood, the Dahomey not only conquered neighboring African states and took their citizens as slaves, selling many in the Atlantic slave trade in exchange for items like rifles, tobacco, and alcohol, but it was their engagement in this trade that brought Dahomey most of its wealth. Oh, that's kind of a convenient fact that you can't really gloss over. Regarding the Agoji themselves, the website notes that the Agoji women warriors fought in slave raids with the male fighters. There are accounts of the Dahomey warriors conducting slave raids on villages where they cut the heads off of the elderly and ripped the bottom jawbones off of others. During the raids, they'd burn the villages to the ground. Those who they let live, including the children, were taken captive and sold as slaves. As best put the website themselves, the movie strategically downplays this part of Dahomey's history so as to not complicate the story with the truth, end quote. That is a fantastic quote right there, because that is, I think, getting at the cusp of all of this, right? They can't talk about this. They can't focus on this because what is the big narrative that's being pushed? Viola Davis herself has said, we need this film to do well because if this film does not do well, there will never be a film ever, where black women will be able to lead the box office. That is actually her argument right now. She says, don't worry about all the revisionism. Don't worry about all of the convenient facts that we're glossing over in this film. And she even says, like, love to the Agoji. Okay, so you're showing love to, again, this tribe that massacred neighboring villages, sold these villages' children into slavery to make money, to have their power, and yet you're going to try to still defend this movie and defend this story and defend this tribe as being strong women. Not just strong women, but strong women of color. And because of that, that's more important than the actual history itself. Coming from the same people that call out history books and call out white people all the time for supposedly glossing over American history and trying to make things seem like they weren't as bad as they were. Again, it's just a bit hypocritical to say the very least. So, this is, again, the narrative that's being struck right now is, on one side, hey, revisionism is totally fine as long as it's pushing a certain agenda that we approve of. And on the other side, you have people saying, this tribe right here should not be glorified in a film format because they did terrible atrocities. So, that leaves it really up to you. Are you going to support this film in theaters? I would say you probably shouldn't. I mean, ultimately, not only does the film just look kind of cringy based on its general premise, but also the fact that it is glossing over these elements is just, again, downright atrocious. So, again, whether the film makes its money back or not still remains to be seen. $19.5 million is ahead of where this film was expected to be. After its opening weekend, it was projected to make somewhere around $18 million. So the fact that it did make, when adjusted for, so this is the actual adjusted number here, this is the actual numbers, it made a little over $19 million in its opening. Right now, those are the only numbers that we currently have for the film. But again, that $50 million number means right now it's only made 0.4 times its budget. But depending on how much money it makes in that second weekend, whether or not this film does get any type of international release and any type of international press, will ultimately determine this film's success or failure. So if we see a 50+% drop for this movie, because this film is a little bit of a smaller film as far as the budget is concerned, that would not be a very good sign. If we see continued drops like that over time, and I hope that we do, hopefully, videos like this and plenty of the plethora of other videos out there calling this nonsense out start to wake people up to the fact that this is not just trying to tell you an awesome real story, but rather is trying to indoctrinate you into believing something that is actually not true, that is based off of lies, based off of false premises, that is based off of something that is glossing over something else that the same people who are trying to perpetuate the nonsense would call other people out for, is something that needs to be talked about. Again, when films are starting to, not just, again, it's not about escapism in this instance, right? They are trying instead to say, hey, we're going to preach to you modern identity politics while trying to present fake history to you. So that way you'll say, hey, yeah, the Agojis, these are awesome. And then when someone comes to you and says, oh, did the film go into how they chopped the heads off of old people and how they ripped out jawbones of the people that they were enslaving and selling to the same people that the film's premise is setting them up to fight against? Oh, no, they let that part out. Oh, kind of changes the dynamic a little bit, right? Kind of changes them from being the heroes. Like, again, look at this poster right here. Like, heroes, we are the best. Woman king, which is not even a thing. Anyway, those are my thoughts on all of this. What are your thoughts? Do you think The Woman King is going to be a box office success? Do you think that there is going to be enough conversation about this revisionism going on, and the fact that, again, you have these people that are trying to defend it, right? The filmmakers, the people within the film itself. Viola Davis being a very major proponent of this. Again, the things that she is saying on social media is actually quite it's quite damaging, I would say. It's quite, I would say, downright scary. The fact that she's trying to make this film seem like this is the only film that features women of color, and that somehow this film is going to be the only film that will ever be able to present and show that women of color can make money at the box office, like that somehow that will never happen again. That just, to me, is so nonsensical and so prideful that I think that it needs to be called out. And also, hopefully, it gets thrown into the face saying, no, it's not that your film didn't fail because of the reasons that you're going to say that it failed for. Hopefully, if it does fail, ultimately, it'll be because people said, wait a minute, this isn't cool. You kind of glossed over these things all for an agenda, and I'm not going to support that. But let me know your thoughts about this and anything else I mentioned in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, loud that fire button, smash the rumble button. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out for all of my September Patreon, Subscribestar, and Locals members. Starting off with my Patreon members, Chris from the 80s, that's his YouTube channel, Garrett Searles, Hymir Irie Hymason, Jeff Toon, Jonathan Carney, Laura, The Modern Major General Story, Orange Eye Reviews, you can also find on YouTube by the same name, Rosetta Allen, YouTube's name is Eagle Rider, Stan Andrian, and Miss Martin Muses, and that is her YouTube channel. Thank y'all very much for supporting me over on Patreon. Also, for all my Subscribestar peeps, Matt317, that's his Twitch channel name, support him there. Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Mr. Roy, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and the K-Man. Thank you, K-Man, as well, and you can find him at xtheboundaries.co, and thanks to all of my Subscribestar members. And lastly, to my Locals members, Locals has definitely been hopping a lot more recently. Shout out to Miss Minnesota hockey fan, how about a hockey player, UAB Mad Dog, UAB Mad Dog, Mike Jackson for the win, Brett D90, and the amazing lawyer Robert Barnes. Thank y'all for supporting me over on Locals. And an extra special shout out to newer members, Joey Horn, who is back once again, and the Empress of the Universe, Tina B. And if you want your name shouted out vocally at the end of every single live stream and video, make sure that you support me over on Patreon, Subscribestar, or Locals, and you can find out more information about it on those websites, and check out the top link in the video description below if you want to find out more about how to get that, access to podcasts that I do with John the Flickinger, and also how to be featured on the Chosen of Valhalla live stream, which I do once a month with my Chosen of Valhalla members, and it's always a lot of fun. Anyway, that's going to be it for me today. You guys all have an amazing rest of your day. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Beautiful people, and as always, God bless.